Hey there, good morning everyone. Welcome back to week two of our virtual internship journey on web development. And I hope you all had a great week and are ready for yet another exciting session. I want to give a big shout out to all of you for all your amazing participation last week. You really brought a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the discussions. Now, without further ado, let's give a warm welcome to Ganesh, who will be leading today's session. Over to you, Ganesh. Thank you. Uh, Ganesh,
Yeah.
yes, so perfect.
Okay. Thanks, Pranav. I hope I am audible, loud and clear, and visible as well. So, without further ado, let's get it started. And to all the students who have come, uh, a very warm welcome and congratulations on completing week one of your virtual internship in web development. I know that many of you would have already completed the exercises and submitted the exercises, and would have received, people who have submitted most probably would have received your badges, which is a bronze badge, an enthusiast badge, which you will have received. If you guys have not received, you'll be receiving it today. And before we get started, let's establish some house rules here. So today we'll embark on the second week of your virtual internship journey in web development, in which you'll be learning something with regards to creating a game of web development, some like a Candy Crush game, which is what we'll be seeing today. So before we get started, there are some housekeeping rules. We can keep the session to be purely interactive. So if you have any doubts per se, you can just raise your hands using the raise icon in the Teams, or you can put in the chat, or even you can unmute yourself and ask that there is a doubt which I would like to clear, and we can take it up from there. So that is number one. And number two is to access your course today as well. You'll have to have signed up in your community Candy page, which you would have done the last time. So to access the course, make sure that you have signed in your community Candy page to take it forward. And so the agenda which we'll do is we'll do some course exercises first, as in like what we do with the course first, and then we'll take questions up and front in an interactive way. And at the end, we'll have some time for questionnaire for this week, and also if you have questions with regards to last week exercises or submissions as well. Uh, yeah, so I hope I made myself clear. All right, let's get started. So before we start, maybe uh, I would ask my colleague Sandhya to paste the course page for you guys to have a look at it, so that we'll get it started from there. Um Sandhya, could you please paste the link here?
Yes, Ganesh.
Okay, so if you let me share my screen. All right. So if you guys have clicked on the link, so you'd be landed up on this page, which basically gives you an overview on what is the second week of the virtual internship program in web development is going to be. So this week we'll be focusing mainly on uh, the web development, which also comprises of a prime topic in the gaming industry. Uh, Also, we'll go through some of the exercises pertaining to how to create a game. And the learning objectives of what we will see here is some fundamentals on the gaming technology, and some of the concepts involved in, let's say, a toolkit called Gulp, which is like a Node.js platform. So everybody would have heard of many different JavaScript frameworks, as in like, okay, Node.js, Express.js, Vue.js, AngularJS. So these are very popular ones. Here we'll be making use of a combination of AngularJS and Node.js, a framework called Gulp, and another framework called Pacer, which is a gaming framework totally designed in JavaScript and TypeScript for developing HTML games. Per se, games that can be run in a mobile, or games can be run in a web portal, something like that. And then what we'll have at the end is a completely functional game of Candy Crush right in your browser. And yeah, so that's it. So before we get started, I just wanted to confirm if you guys are all okay to proceed. Are there any uh, doubts or interactions that you have to have before we get started? Okay. All right. Okay. Let's get started then. So coming back to here, we'll jump into how do we proceed with building a Candy Crush game. So in today's agenda, this is what we are going to discuss. One is an technology behind technology behind building up a Candy Crush game, and how to create our own Candy Kit to implement the game right in our desktop. So you guys would be aware already of the Candy Crush game. So it's like a very popular game that has been around for quite some time, although not quite recently, but it has been reigning over all the Android top download charts, most downloaded web app game application charts over the past decade. And it is like the top most downloaded game over the internet. It still holds the record for that. Then the main features of this is it uses HTML5 and CSS3 for the styling, and JavaScript and parts of it of TypeScript as well. Then the game also has a background image. So if we see the tiles, you'll have numerous tiles, and at the background, you'll have an image. We'll do that. And it also includes a square layout. So we'll have to, everybody knows how to play a Candy Crush. So you just have to swap the candles into matching colors, and so that they get broken and new candles come into the play. So that's how the game is being played. And we'll have multiple square layouts which contain many candles of different colors. We'll have to swap and match the candles to get increased in our levels and scores. So this is one. The second one is what we'll see is something like what is the framework that is being used. So one which is being basically used is AngularJS here. So AngularJS is used for creating something called as a game directive. A game directive is something that gives the logic for creating the game framework entirely per se to run. And the advantage of using AngularJS is that it has a very cleanly written popular JS code. It's a basic, stable, and robust framework, which we could actually adopt based on any browser that you use. And it has a very features of creating a single page application, as in like you can create one application in a very clean code on very maintainable way. And second thing, it has an advantage of being open source. So being open source means that it has a lot of support, and there are so many people contributing to this particular library, and we could use it since it is completely free. Then the third point is basically it is used for creating very stable client-side applications. Client-side applications in the sense which could run directly in your desktop without actually connecting to an external server. So it could entirely run in your desktop in a clean way without any problem with the compiling as such. And the fourth one, or it is a cross-browser complaint. So let's say you create something with and test it with your browser, say Edge, and your client has something like a Firefox or Chrome, it would still work there because it is cross-browser compliant. It doesn't have any per se compatibility issues. So that is a robust framework, that is AngularJS. That's what we are going to use. And so before we proceed further, so let's say you learned about HTML last class and some amount of CSS as well. So you haven't brushed much of JavaScript, I believe, in the last uh, week of internship. So maybe just to give you an overview of how a JavaScript code would look like, I'll show you an example of this. So let's say this is a HTML index login page, which is basically designed through HTML stylings and HTML CSS styling and HTML tags. Okay. So post this, what we'll have to do is we'll have to make a connection with the JavaScript. And let's say this is a login page, and I'm giving some username and some password for it to actually authenticate. So I click on login. It gets redirected to a second page called welcome. So how this is being done is, this is like a functionality. So previously, this is a static page. Okay, so this is the static HTML CSS page. So once you give the username and password, it redirects you to a second page, which is a result of an event. You click there and then you get redirected. So this is a kind of a logic-based compliance, which is included in a script tag making use of JavaScript. So if we want to just have a look at the code, let's say. So if you see here, you have the HTML tags, okay? And you have something called as script. So this basically script is the core component of where we put our JavaScript code. So we put the logic of the code here, and everything else is like the first is the HTML tag, and all others are HTML tags. It has some amount of CSS as well. This prime component of script tag comprises the core logic of the JavaScript. So every framework in JavaScript, every file you reserve, you write in JavaScript will go, if it has to be in HTML space, it has to be put in a script tag. So this is how typically it is done. Now let's come back to our, let's say, back to our presentation. So we just saw a minute component of JavaScript functionality, and then we are going to make use of that JavaScript functionality right in the code today. All right, so we'll be making use of AngularJS. Next, the popular concept of game engines. So we know that we are going to build a game, and everybody would have played so many games in their lives. So many people, right from our my nostalgia days of let's say Road Rash. So starting from that, so the gaming industry has evolved quite a lot, and Candy Crush is one such instance where it reached the peak. Like so many people having used Candy Crush for a lot of time, and it has extended toward a very great phases now, involving virtual reality, augmented reality. There are multiple gaming platforms like Roblox. Many of you would have played that as well. So today, what are gaming engines? The core concept of game development lies with these gaming engines. So these are the frameworks for gaming development. Okay, so there are multiple core areas that are involved in gaming engines. How do you create a gaming engine? First thing is, obviously it has to be visually appealing. Let's say Super Mario, whatever it is. So you'll have to see all the bricks and diamonds and the trees and everything. So you'll have to have the graphics for that first, and then you'll have the music. So Super Mario music, Road Rash music, whatever it is, you'll have to have the audio. And then comes the core part. So these two are something like, there is like add-ons, the graphics and the audio. The core logic or the functionality part comes in later, where we basically say that, hey, what will happen if this game runs. Okay, so he has to run, he has to jump, and what happens when he jumps? And let's say if he reaches a milestone, it has to go through the next level. So these are all included in the logic. So these are the main three core areas. Next, we can see that there is a drastic difference between the game engines that was present previously and modern game engines. Nowadays, modern game engines have included multiple different aspects. So they've considered, let's say, there are many simulators of, let's say, helicopter simulator or plane simulator. So those all take into account of real-time physics into play. So there are multiple code libraries that are available, which kind of translate whatever will happen by applying physics laws in real world to the gaming world of the gaming world as well. So if you have to drive your airplane, you hold your phone like this, and with the help of gyroscopic sensors, so you tilt here, you tilt there in your NFS and your helicopter or aircraft games. So it typically moves to your left and quickly moves your right. If you put it down, it goes down. So that all is taken care of, all your physics libraries that is present in the game engine. So then you have multiple AI libraries and networking or optimization libraries. So what do you mean by optimization is this particular game should run on any amount of RAM. So the minimum RAM required for running GTA Vice City, a minimum amount of RAM or system requirement for running a particular game totally depends on optimization. So the more you optimize your code, make it lightweight, it becomes easily compatible with the right amount of chipset that you are targeting to have your game installed. So any Android game, it's even Candy Crush that is available on Android. If you download it, it'll kind of consume a specific amount of space. There may be multiple versions of Candy Crush that you can see on Android App Store as well, which have multiple optimization levels. Like there is a light Candy Crush, which will have very limited amount of levels and limited amount of memory that is being consumed. So that is optimization. And networking is where if it has to be offline or online, it resides completely on your mobile and then runs it. So these are all some of the few aspects that are taken into account of uh, creating a game engine. All right. Then I just discussed this previously. I'll just put a note on this again. So the game engines have to be both mobile compatible and uh, desktop compatible, like or web compatible. So if it's like either you'll have to install in your mobile and then run the game, or install in your desktop and run the game, or without even running on the desktop, you can host it in a website, and then you can run the game or play the game from their server. So these are different versions of it. And if it is Android, then the game engine in Android after the Android Gingerbread came into play. So since then, we see that there are multiple games that are being chunked out in the Play Store, Android Play Store. And the other thing is the game needs to load fast. So it has to be responsive and it has to be fast. So these both are taken into account by the code that we write the game with, and also some of the hardware specifications of your phone or your desktop. And it also needs to reduce the amount of battery drain. So if you play for like 20 minutes or 30 minutes and your battery comes down to 40%, then we'll have trouble in actually playing the game. It's not like we cannot just charge our phone every now and then, put it on charge and then keep playing, although it's not completely advisable. So these are main considerations that have been carefully thought about and crafted while creating our own game engine. So before we proceed further, I'll just stop a minute per se to answer any of your questions. So good so far? Okay, so I feel that it is good. So okay, let's get proceeded further. So in this, we'll be making use of something called as Phaser. So what does Phaser mean? It is an open source framework, which is like HTML supportable game framework, which means that you could play this game in your web server as well. Okay, and there have been multiple game frameworks that were present previously. But then why Phaser came into play? Phaser came into play because the code that they used were very stable. Uh, Excuse me, if there is someone who isn't unmuted, can you please go ahead and mute yourself? I could hear some noise. Okay, all right, thank you. So Phaser is came into play mainly for the focus of performance.
Ganesh, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry, I didn't know that. So, all right, are you guys able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so so we'll talk about Phaser. So Phaser is one such application where which came into play before just quite recently. The reason why Phaser was developed is because it was focused mainly on creating mobile web browser games more robust. So earlier we had frameworks similar to Phaser, but with the recent development of JavaScript and TypeScript, it was possible, or there was a need for a more robust framework that could create games in your web development or in your web browser. So that's where Phaser came into account. And Phaser has uh, a very great node-based audio support. So it is like a node-based, which means that it could scale. You could scale your code into any number of machines simultaneously. So the code is very great in that aspect. And it also uses two main components. One is called canvas rendering and another is called as WebGL rendering. So these two are two different kind of internal frameworks for rendering. People who already played games or into kind of editing videos or stuff will know what rendering is. So let's say you have two, three images or scenes put together. You'll have to club them together and make it a video. So that is like it kind of creates a video on the go. So that process is called as rendering. And there are multiple frameworks available for this. The Phaser uses internally both Canvas and WebGL. And it entirely supports web audio, which means that it can be run on the website with the audio as well. So, all right. And coming back to emphasize more on the features that are present in Phaser. Okay, so we talked about earlier about some of the modern libraries having some capabilities of physics or let's say AI or let's say optimization. So all these have been taken into account while creating this particular framework. In addition to this, in addition to what I have mentioned earlier about WebGL and Canvas for rendering, we have something called as preloader. So what does preloader mean? Preloader means that once you run the code, right, you immediately see your let's say uh, your Candy Crush window appearing. So internally you'll have all the tiles and everything. So that is what means by the preloader. And then you'll have physics and you'll have camera options as well. Uh, so let's take a pause here and coming back to the kit page. We already know that you already know that how to download a particular kit, right? So if you come down to your kit page, it will have a instruction on one-click installer to install the Candy Crush game. You can go ahead and click this. Remember that you'll have to be signed up or signed in already for this. So if you click on this, it'll be redirected to another page, and you click on one-click installer, which will download this particular kit installer. So meanwhile, if you guys use GeoFiber or typically with GeoFiber or Edge browser, you might face some let's say warnings or issues. With GeoFiber, you'll have to set up the DNS. I guess few of your folks who have encountered the issue last time and it has been resolved on the session. So you'll have to just change your DNS to manual. That way it will work. So let's say, okay, I open this particular downloaded file and then I click on extract all. So I go into the folder and it will typically have a kit underscore installer file, which is an one-click file that has the entire functionality to download this particular source code, download the Node.js framework, which we need for this particular creating this game, and other frameworks internally needed as well. So all you'll have to do is you'll have to double click on this and click on more info, click on run anyway. So it will have three functionalities. First is it will first find out if there is Node already installed in your system. If Node is not installed, it will take some time to download Node, and then it will download the source code and then check for a particular Node version compatible for running this Candy Crush. And it will entirely install all the modules for running this engine, start the game up for you in your web browser. So I'll take a moment for you guys to download so that you could follow along. Let's say how many of you guys have already clicked on download? Can you raise hands? Okay. So remember that you just sign in and then download it. It becomes easier for you guys to actually do it. So you click on download, it will download a zip file, right click and extract, and then just double click on the zip file. If you guys any chance like once you double click it doesn't open or of any sort, let's say this happens with lesser version of Windows. Sometimes when you double click it doesn't open, let's say Windows 7 of sorts. So what you could do is you could just open that particular directory in command prompt and type the file name alone. So it will be kit underscore installer.bat. Type it and enter, the process will start by itself. So we have 13 folks who have already started their download. Okay, let's wait for a few more folks. If by any chance you have any doubts or queries, you can unmute and ask. Okay. Let's wait for one more minute, maybe. Only 30% of the population, 25% of the population have clicked on download. Okay, so we have this Gautam. Okay, so you have faced an issue with unable to add file, the kit has been installed. Okay, so Gautam, can you specify which version of the Windows you are using? Probably you can unmute. Okay, it's Windows 10. So some versions of let's say Windows 10 have some issue. So this basically what you see is unable to add file, this particular file. What you see is because of a download intervention between Windows 10 and a framework called BitsAdmin. Okay, so maybe for those folks who are having this particular error, we will send you instructions on how you could install it better in Windows 10 or 11. So some versions or some laptops of Windows 10 which have some updates have a probability of this error occurring. So we'll get on with that after the right at the end of the session or on a separate one-on-one. Okay, let me go ahead and share my screen again. So let's say if you guys have downloaded it, you'll get something like this. So click on enter and you'll have a candy kit that is being displayed here. So we'll finish the PowerPoint and then come back to it again. So, okay. In most of this particular TypeScript, in most of this particular solution, we'll be making use of TypeScript instead of JavaScript. The reason being, JavaScript was initially displayed as a let's say client-side programming language. The reason why TypeScript is being used more predominantly is because number one, it is lightweight, and number two, it is automatically used for debugging. So let's say you have any runtime error, it gets automatically displayed or resolved. It could be resolved easily on runtime by TypeScript. And third, it is fast and efficient. So which makes the games or whatever we are building, the logic, it gets executed fast, and it is most easily scalable. It has both support for server-side development and client-side development. So that is the main reason we are moving ahead with TypeScript instead of JavaScript. And then the core crux of this particular gaming framework that we use is called a Gulp. So Gulp is like an automatic task runner, which uses Node.js. So it's like let's say a task scheduler and runner, which kind of does a particular functionality. Let's say do this, do this, do this, do this. It takes into account of everything and then automates everything and then runs it as a pure automated way. And it has been developed completely in JavaScript, and all the front-end task and let's say very big web applications have been run entirely on Gulp. The reason being it is very scalable and it is very robust. And any amount of automated task, let's say with regards to CLL and CSS and HTML, all this have been automated in Gulp so that it requires minimum amount of effort for us to run the entire solution. Then we come to the point where how do we develop a particular system or a particular solution quickly? Typically, we'll have to look for open source libraries. Open source, the reason being, it has wide amount of support and it has wide amount of contribution, which means that more active development of code is being done and more number of people actively supporting the users. Let's say you face an issue, you put it in their particular GitHub repositories. Okay, so the game just loaded. Okay, so the reason being open source okay, the reason being, okay, any open source library is open to anyone. Anyone can download and use the particular library, and it is very innovative. More number of people actively actually using it, which means that you will have so many amount of support for this. So let's get this started. Meanwhile, let's address some of the issues if you guys have. Okay, okay. So if there isn't any, we'll see. So I hope for you guys, for some of you guys, okay, they are facing the issue. That's because of transfer with a particular library and Windows 10. For few of our other folks would be able to actually download it. It might take some time. So the process goes on like this. So first it will download your node if it is not already present. Okay. And then number 2, it will download the particular source code of the game. Number 3, after downloading the source code, it will check for a particular version of node that is compatible with your operating system and with this particular game. And if that is not present, all the frameworks of Gulp and other ones are not present, it will actually install them as well. So all this would be taken into account of automatically in a series way. So you don't have to necessarily try anything. So you'll just have to click on once you get a prompt that you'll have to type yes or no, type yes, that is Y, and then it will automatically uh, do the rendering and then create a game. So let me show you how it will look like. Sorry, I got some. Anybody having any queries? Okay, let me share my screen again and showcase. So once you run this, okay, so the entire process of installation gets complete. This is what you will see. You will see that your Node app is running on port 3000. So and it'll automatically open localhost 3000 is where you have this Candy Crush game. Let's say I'll just reload it. So you have this Candy Crush game that is being displayed entirely here. So okay, I don't know how this goes on mute. So earlier we talked about 3 things, right? So first we told that it will have a background image. So we can see here that there is a background image present here. And we also told that it will have a layout of square tiles. So there are square tiles that are put in the layout. And third, we told that we'll have to just match it and then play it. So that's what it will look like. So before we go into the game, let's see about the code. Okay, so let's say what would have happened is, so once your installer works, so you'll have something called as a candy folder that is being downloaded in your current local machine, in your current folder. All right, so let's say I have something called as candy here that is being displayed here. So we can just have a look at the code. So I'm just going to open my code, open folder, and then we have it in downloads here and candy and then source code. Okay, so if we have the have a look at the source code, we'll see that in the public app game, so this typically is the main core component of uh, the game. This has the logic entirely. Okay, so and the main file for this is the game.js file. So if we have a look at this game.js file, this file has entirely all the logic that could be present for the game. So once your game is run, this file is generated and it has all the details on where to go and look and what to look, all those stuff. And we'll see multiple folders here. We'll see an asset folder, which has levels, sounds, and images. If you see levels, it has a configuration on different levels of, let's say, currently for this game, we have put it as 5 levels. It can be attributed or maximized to any amount of level. And second, you have sounds. So these are the sounds and images which have to be present while running the game. So there will be a background sound. Let's say when you swap, right, you'll hear sound. And when you all the images that you see, the cookies, the croissants, diamonds, whatever you see, are all fetched from this particular assets folder in while running the game. So I guess we are clear so far with this. Now let's come back again and let's say, see here. Okay, we see that, okay, there are multiple references that are being made uh, here. And all these references are present in a TypeScript file called references.ts. Okay. Okay. So we see that, okay, what it necessarily has is all the components of chain, tile, cookies, swapping, all these logics are present inside models.chain models dot. So if we see here, for an example, let's say cookie. Okay, go inside cookie TypeScript file. Let's say this has all the components or all the possibilities of how many cupcakes should be present, how many donuts should be present, and what is the number of macarons that has to come out. So all internal level of details are mentioned here, and this is being referenced in the main game.js file through this references.ts. And let's say after we do this, we'll have look at, let's say, swap. So this means that what typically has to be the logic for swapping. So you swipe two cookies, and what happens after that? And the properties for tiles, what happens or what are the properties that needs to be present in tile level. So all these are being mentioned in the models folder. Now, if we come back, if we could remember again, we talked something about something called as preloader, correct? So preloader is where we told that, hey, this will have uh, the game preloaded already. So once we see this web page here, this already has a game that is, let's say, a background image, all this preloaded. We didn't load anything here. So all these states are maintained at the states folder. So if you click on preloader here, we'll see that it has a specific instruction on what should happen or what should appear when we load the image or when the application is run, what should appear uh, at first itself without even we doing anything. What should appear first? That is being taken into account of this preloader. And then we have something called as game scene. This game scene has the other instances on where the tiles should be and what should happen when you move two different, uh, let's say, tiles, or that you should you should have a music that is being displayed. All these are taken into account of the game scene. Then we have something called as game scene timer. So this game scene timer is what we see here. Let's say we have a timer here, right? 30 seconds is being set default. So if we scroll down and see, we have something called as set here. Okay, set here as that 30. Let's see here. So you'll have phaser time seconds into 30. So that means that your game for each level is comprises of 30 seconds. We could go ahead and modify whatever we want. And with each level, currently we have as 5 levels. With each level, your complexity of the game gets increased. All that is based on the logic specified here. And then we talked about levels. If we say levels, then let's say we have a look at level 0.json. So this level 0.json has the conditions for how the tiles will look like. 1 means the tile is present, 0 means the tile is not present. So as we go ahead or increase the levels, you could see in your Candy Crush that you'll have different shapes. You'll have a background layout, but then you'll have different tiles being blocked that you cannot move at that particular tile or sorts. So that is being controlled here at the level we are configuring in the levels JSON. So you could see here in level 2, we'll say that the first tile will not be present, will be blocked. You cannot move there. So these are the main components of running a code. So we'll come back. We'll pause for a moment for any questions, and then we'll come back to the game and then play it. Okay. Okay. So I'll stop it and then share it with the audio so that you could see the audio of the game present as well. So share with computer audio. Okay, I'm sharing my screen again with the audio. Now let's reload the game. And let's say You swap it, and yeah, I guess this is how it should be played. So yeah, you typically get the gist of it. You'll have the audio already in place. For every move, there's a background music, and every move you make, you get that cracking sound, and then it automatically proceeds to the next level, where you see that earlier in the logic we saw the configuration had 0 in the first place. So that means that there is no tile in this particular first tile is being absent. So that's the gist of it. So let me stop sharing once. Sound is a little bit okay. Okay, let me share the screen again without the sound. All right. Yes. Now we could do a simple experiment. Let's say we earlier talked that we could actually change the game scene timer, right? So in the game scene timer.ts file, we could say that here it is like 30 seconds. Now what happens, let's say for 15 seconds, okay? I type as 15, I save it, and then reload the game. Okay, I'll go to go live. One second. Okay. So that is typically how we change it. Okay, I guess that's not the right place. Never mind. So yes, coming back to the screen of our course page, let's say here. So this is how we typically do it. Constructing a game right in your app in your web page, and the configuration, everything can be changed for you to actually play around. And this essentially simplifies only one thing. It mainly gives you an overview of how you could typically build a game by learning only three things. One is a JavaScript and maybe some amount of TypeScript, and popular open source frameworks to build a game right out in your desktop. It's very simple. Now let's proceed to what you will be doing in this particular week 2. Okay, so like how you went ahead with week 1, you will have multiple coding exercises. You had coding exercises, many of you have submitted it with great responses, and it is mandatory that for you guys to actually complete your coding exercises in order to receive your internship certificates. So you just have to submit all the solutions how mentioned in the instructions. It's very simple. You'll have a Google form that you'll receive. You could actually go ahead and take it up right after you complete this. Then to just make an example of how you could actually solve it, let's say I can go through a sample exercises for you. Let's make CSS animation in HTML. So what we have is in Candy has multiple code snippets called functions, which we could directly use and then get your exercises done. So in this instance, it is, let's say, make CSS animation in Candy, sorry, in HTML. Sorry. So you enter, and you go to the part of code snippets. Okay. So a result that we see is how can I make a CSS animation? And this is something that, okay, seems good. So what I'll just do is I'll just copy it, and let's say I'll open a new folder, mainly desktop. Okay. In this folder, and maybe create a new file, test.html. Oh, I didn't save it, is it? File test.html. Okay, create file, and then just paste the code here. And we know that, okay, these are all looks like a okay, these are all particularly with regards to styling. So with regards to CSS, so what I could actually go ahead and do is we know that since you studied last time, it should be put in a style tag, correct? So this, I'll have to include it in the style tag, and yeah. Okay, so I've created the style tag here, entered the style tag here, and created all the code for the style, and then exited the tag here. Now I'll just save it, and then let's say I'll just run it. So what you will see is typically is a mouse over when you move, and then it shows you a particular different screen. Uh, so creating your exercises is very simplistic, very simplistic using Candy. So all you have to do is you'll have to search for your exercises in a similar way and make use of the right code snippets. If you already don't know by yourself, you could make Candy for a searching tool for code snippets and then solve your exercises. And with that, yeah, we can we'll take a pause, maybe open up for any questioners. Let's start with today's uh, exercises. Maybe what anything about today's event, or anything about any questions regarding that. You can be interactive. You can ask any questions. So this might be a little bit steep for you guys. So earlier you did something with basics of HTML, CSS. Now we talk something about basics in JavaScript, little bit of that, and then we created a game. And I know that all the intricacies of what happens in this particular file might be a little bit complex for you at this time, but then this was to put an overview of how or what all you could develop using open source web frameworks in your alongside web development journey. So we are open to actually listening anytime. Even let's say you don't want to ask right in the session, you want to ask later separately, you could actually ask us directly in the chat here. If you scroll down, you'll see a reply button here in your page. So you can click on reply and then type, and then automatically it gets received by us, and we'll reply back to whatever questions you have, whatever maybe with regards to any issues with regards to the code, with regards to a particular kid, or any issues with exercises. You can just put it across to us here, and we'll get back on this. And okay, so if you guys are not having any doubts with today's session, we can also open up for uh, any doubts with regards to last week's coding exercises. Many of you have done it, predominantly most of you all, and there were some issues with the Go Live server and some issues with other parts of the code which we received, and I hope that got resolved. We can open up for any amount of discussions or any inputs from our side as well. Okay. All right. So I'll just reiterate a few things here. So there are few things which you'll have to do. One is you'll have to be signed up to access this page. So once you are able to set it up in your laptop, if you're facing any issues, you can ping us. We'll help you out. And then you'll have to submit your. You can click on these coding exercises and then submit, finish these up and then submit to us. Uh, so that second level badge of our internship, and the timeline or time duration for submitting this week's coding exercises will be by the end of next Monday. So the next Tuesday is where we'll have the week 3. So prior to that, by the end of next Monday, you'll have to submit your coding exercises, and that way you'll receive your badges either by Monday or the next Tuesday max. And you'll receive a learner open source learner silver badge, which you can put it in your professional network as well. So this is something mandatory which you'll have to finish, submit to us all week 3, week 1 exercises, week 2 exercises, week 3 exercises. Completing them are mandatory to receive a certificate. So in case you have any issues with our assistance, we just made sure that you can reply it here and we'll take it right across from that. Okay.
Thank you, Ganesh.
If there isn't any questions, over to you, Sandhya, for any
Yeah.
remarks that you'll have to make.
Yeah. So students, please complete your coding exercise for week 2 by next Monday, which is the 3rd of July, in order to receive your level 2 badge. So we will send you a follow-up email regarding the coding exercise with all the resources. So please check your inbox, spam folder and junk folder as well. So if you're having any queries, please clarify now. I think they don't have any queries.
Okay. Okay. So I hope if you don't have any queries, we can conclude. Gautam has. Gautam, can you probably unmute yourself and then uh, provide more details on the error you face? Gautam? So as per my understanding, I see that, okay, the installation package could not be opened. Verify that the package exists, that you can access it. Uh, Verify it is a Windows valid install package. So you folks are joining now. Okay. So this typically would not. So I see that, okay, Node wasn't installed already in your system, right? So that's why it's installing Node. And then, okay, so maybe we can set up a separate one-on-one to go through the process, Gautam. So for a few folks who are having this issue, either you can unmute and talk, or we could have a separate call as well, so that we can see how we can sort this out. So this typically appears to be something with regards to Windows. This is not with regards to the kit that we have. So let's have a look at it later offline as well, Gautam. So similarly, guys, if any of you are facing issues similar to this, you could actually reply in the channel, in the page itself, and for few folks, if you have to be resolved personally, if you don't feel comfortable talking up in the open forum, we could set up a call for let's say a group, and then solve the issue one by one. Okay. I guess if there isn't any, we could conclude this. Over to you, Pranav.